First, a welcome from the kids of Zamalek. Before their seniors show the world how to do it. Banging the drum in Asia. It's football, not war. And the toughest role of all, being Germany's #1. The football fans in the United Arab Emirates are getting ready for the final of the 11th Asian Football Cup, the continent's biggest football event, a culmination of 18 days of competition. Although the UAE had played in the 1990 World Cup finals in Italy, hosting a football event of such importance was a new experience for them and for the head of its football federation, Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed. There was no doubt about the passion of the locals for the game, especially if they had to go themselves. But when it comes to watching football, they're less enthusiastic, and attendances in the group matches have been disappointing. There was an abundance of sophisticated equipment and facilities for the media as the Asian Federation sought to improve the profile of their showpiece event. But the working conditions for the international media at the ground hadn't been helped by the tight security regulations, not unusual in this part of the world. And some teams weren't happy about sharing the same hotel, a complaint Japan's coach Kamo had made on numerous occasions.
The organisation? To be honest, I'd rather not talk about it.
But when the final kicks off here, all that will be history. There's been plenty to talk about on the pitch. The tournaments prove that Asian football is able to produce outstanding individual skills. There have been plenty of performers we shall hear of in the future, but let's introduce you to 4 headline makers. The new Japanese partnership, the flagging Koreans, the Portuguese maverick, and Iran's spectacular recovery. Iran had the advantage of being based in Dubai, the commercial capital of the UAE. Most of the 200,000 Iranian immigrants are based here, having their own schools and running successful businesses. The team entered the competition as no more than a dark horse, despite being the only nation to have won the Asian Cup 3 times.
I think the fact that our team has always been a leading side in Asia has put a great deal of pressure on the side. And because of the 10 to 12 years of war in Iran, our football has been affected in a very negative way. But with positive thinking and better preparation, we're hoping to improve our standard.
Team captain Mohammad Kakpour, one of 4 Iranians playing professional football abroad, could do little when Iran lost their first group match against historic enemies Iraq. But the team spirit remained intact. Inspired by their strong support, they improved to win their 2 remaining group matches against Thailand and Saudi Arabia, scoring 6 times to finish top of their group. Their sensational 6-2 win over Korea secured them a place among the best 4 teams. For Korea and Ko Jong-woon, high expectations turned into stark reality. Ko, who played in 2 World Cups, couldn't lift the team's performance. Korea, one of the favourites to win the Asian Cup, won just 1 of their 3 group matches and were lucky to qualify for the next round.
We didn't have enough time to prepare after a hard season in the K-League. All the players are very tired, and the tough pre-tournament games in China didn't help much either. The team is just really exhausted.
Ko now takes up a lucrative contract in the J-League, while Korea have missed out on a major opportunity to build prestige and experience prior to the World Cup. Saudi Arabia and their star coach Eduardo Vengada had a great start to the tournament. Winning their first 2 matches and then their quarter-final against China was a tremendous performance by the totally homegrown young team, rewarded by a free shopping trip sponsored by the Saudi Federation.
There's potential, great potential, in spite of the team being very young. There are 5 players that played at the Olympic Games. They're between 19 and 23 years old. And we have 6 players from the 1994 World Cup. The oldest of them is 27. So it's a very young team with a very long production line.
Vingada, who's coached Portuguese national teams at all levels, took over as Saudi's coach only 4 weeks before the Asian Cup started. He'd fallen out with the Portuguese FA despite finishing 4th at the Olympic Games in Atlanta. He's now taking legal action.
Long before the Olympic Games, I'd asked them what would happen to me. But they never gave me a clear answer. In August, they called me up to show me their ideas. They were interesting, but were not in accordance with my profile and with all the work I'd done before. So I couldn't accept it.
The most impressive team of the first round were Japan. Japan were the only team to win all 3 of their group games, and as title holders, they were the hot favourites to win the tournament. After his spell in Italy and outstanding performances in the J-League, Kazu is still the best-known Asian player around. But that could change soon. 23-year-old midfielder Maizono is beginning to run him close, although Kazu relishes the competition.
I believe I need competition, and it's good to have a challenger in the team. Good players around you encourage you to perform even better, so it's quite good that more young players are making the headlines now.
They're a good partnership on and off the field. Maizono, captain of Japan's Olympic team that beat Brazil in Atlanta, will shortly be following in Kazu's footsteps to Europe. He's hoping to play in Spain.
We understand each other's way of playing football very well, but I think we can still improve a lot. It's not a perfect partnership yet. Basically, I have to work harder in the coming games to develop our game further.
It's a new partnership that's had an immediate effect. But in the quarter-final against Kuwait, the magic deserted them. Beaten 2-0, they were out.
The favourites may have departed, but interest in the tournament has increased with the impressive run of the hosts. Ticket sales went up after the UAE's dramatic extra-time quarter-final win over Iraq, and the Middle East in general has unexpectedly dominated proceedings. As we approach the final stages, the tournament has really caught fire.
Fast reactions, good jumping ability, anticipation of situations and good concentration. These are the things that a good goalkeeper needs.
Andres Kupka, Germany's current #1 goalkeeper, has got it all. After a bitter transfer wrangle this summer, the man they call the penalty king finally moved to Marseille in France after a move to Barcelona fell through at the last minute. Kupka learned his trade in the German Bundesliga, where traditionally the competition to be the best goalkeeper is especially fierce.
Maybe the Germans are especially gifted. Perhaps because we had great goalkeepers in the past, like Sepp Maier and Toni Schumacher. They were idols, and we tried hard to be like them.
Sepp Maier was Germany's first international goalkeeping superstar, rising to prominence in the victorious World Cup side of 1974. Maier, a one-club man with Bayern Munich, starred in 3 World Cups and won 95 caps. That's a record for a German goalkeeper.
A good goalkeeper is always in the right position and knows where the ball is going. He needs to anticipate situations very early. And I think that here in Germany we're advanced because we're cool-headed. We're able to keep our nerves. And that's what a goalkeeper needs.
Toni Schumacher, with 76 caps, is Germany's second most capped goalkeeper and was #1 throughout the 1980s. He played in the World Cup finals in 1982 and 86. He was one of the first keepers in Germany to have specialised training sessions. And today he's passing on his expertise to the younger generation at Borussia Dortmund, grooming future goalkeeping champions.
Gradually the Bundesliga has begun to employ former goalkeepers, which is the best thing to do. We ex-goalkeepers know exactly how a keeper feels, what he thinks, how he reacts, his moods. It's hard for a normal coach to understand the needs of a goalkeeper completely.
Schumacher's successor in the national team was Bodo Illgner, first capped in 1987. His crowning moment, Italia 90, where at the age of 23, his semi-final penalty save set up Germany's World Cup win.
The Northern Europeans aren't showmen. They're hard-headed and hard-working, determined and ambitious. These are the characteristics of a good goalkeeper. On the other hand, in Southern Europe or South America, they want to be spectacular. Just think of the Mexican keeper or the Colombian higuita.
Goalkeeping is serious business in Germany, and unlike some countries, kids here fight to play in goal. Because of the big demand for training courses, Andreas Köpke has produced a series of coaching videos of his own, specifically designed for the younger goalkeeper.
I believe there's still lots to improve in goalkeeper training. So especially for young players and goalkeepers, this should give them a little help on how to approach a session. It's also for the coaches to give them an idea about how to structure goalkeeper training.
Köpke played for 7 years at Nuremberg and 3 at Frankfurt. He was a late starter and first came to prominence in the Bundesliga at the age of 24. But he quickly earned himself a reputation as a penalty king, saving 15 out of 41 spot kicks over 10 years. His achievements were recognised in 1993 when he was voted Germany's Player of the Year. In the run-up to USA 94, Köpke had hoped to establish himself as the undisputed #1, but coach Bertie Vogts had other ideas. He picked Illgner again because of his greater experience. Köpke had just 14 caps at the time, so disappointment for him, second choice for the 3rd major tournament in a row. Once again, he'd been forced into the shadow of Bodo Illgner. In America, Illgner and Germany struggled through to the quarterfinals, where they met Bulgaria. Memorable goals from Stoichkov and Lechkov ended Germany's World Cup campaign. The team, and Illgner especially, were heavily criticised for the defeat. Indeed, Illgner announced his retirement from international football in the dressing room immediately after the game. Köpke's chance had come at last. It took just 2 years for Köpke to have an impact on the national team. Germany winners at Euro 96. Köpke voted best goalkeeper of the tournament. The highlights, penalty saves against Italy and England.
We grew together as a unit, both on and off the pitch. We were a team. That meant that whenever there was a problem, we were able to solve it internally, not through the media. In the past, this was completely different. You'd read about everything in the newspapers first. Everything we talked about was in the papers.
But after Euro 96, it was the usually reserved Köpke who was making headlines himself. He was negotiating with VfB Stuttgart and almost signed for Barcelona, but he ended up with Marseille. A war of words followed, in which Köpke accused Stuttgart president Meyer Vorfelder, also an influential figure at the German Football Federation, of sabotaging his move to Spain.
I didn't sign anything in Stuttgart. We just had talks, but without reaching an agreement. But the German Football Federation and Herr Meyer-Vollfelder made any subsequent transfer impossible. But this isn't an issue anymore. I've no regrets signing for Marseille. Although I had a lot of trouble with the transfer, it all turned out right in the end. The good thing is I'm at Marseille now, and happy to be here.
Köpke, now 34, has been a big hit in Marseille. He's conceded just 18 goals in 22 games, and after an indifferent start, Marseille are running into form. Although back in Germany, Bayern's goalkeeper Oliver Kahn is pushing for a place in the national team, Köpke is confident he can still be the number one in France '98.
I had to wait a long time to become number one. I played my first big tournament in the summer, and the friendlies before the European Championship were good as well. So I've had a good run, and I want to and will play in the qualifying matches and then in the World Cup finals in France.
He may have been a late starter, but he looks like being a late finisher too, with a career crowned perhaps by a winner's medal from France '98.
It's by far and away the biggest city in Africa, with a population of 15 million. Its location on the River Nile has made it a cultural leader both in Africa and the Arab world. It is, of course, Cairo. It's a city which leads by example, and in football, it's no different. Clubs from Cairo have won 12 African club titles. Their nearest rival, Yaoundé in Cameroon, can boast just 5. And in the final of this year's African Champions Cup, Zamalek were aiming to make it 13. Behind the statistics, there lies an even greater story, involving this man, the Zamalek captain Ismail Youssef. This year, Zamalek were aiming to be the first team to win the Champions Cup 4 times. Remarkably, 32-year-old Ismail Youssef has been a part of all 3 of Zamalek's previous wins. Zamalek first won the Champions Cup in 1984 when they beat their opponents in this year's final, Shooting Stars from Nigeria. And in the first leg in Cairo, they won 2-0, with both goals coming from Gamal Abdul Hamid. Zamalek then won the return in Nigeria to clinch the title. Ismail Youssef takes up the story.
I was a substitute for that second game. I have very fond memories of the match since it was the first time I'd been abroad with the first team. My brother Ibrahim Youssef was the captain of the side. He was the best player in Africa at the time, and we succeeded in winning the game 1-0.
2 years later, Zamalek were back in the final again, this time against Africa Sports from the Côte d'Ivoire. Ismail Youssef had had a dream start to his career, part of a Zamalek team that was now growing in international stature. Once again, the first leg was in Cairo, and once again it was Gamal Abdul Hamid who gave Zamalek the lead. It was Ismail Youssef whose pass led to the second goal for a 2-0 win. In the second leg, however, Zamalek lost 2-0 and only won the cup on penalties in the hostile atmosphere of Abidjan.
In that game, there were some very strange incidents. Some of the Ivorian fans brought along pigs which they killed to try and put us off. Of course it affected us, we were intimidated. But eventually we won the match and took the cup for the second time.
The success story wasn't over. There was a third final in '93 against Ashanti Kotoko of Ghana. After 2 0-0 draws, that save gave Zamalek the cup for a record equalling third time, and they won the trophy outright. 3 wins in 3 finals, and Ismail Youssef had been part of all of them. A remarkable achievement, but not a unique one. Afia Conakry from Guinea had won the cup 3 times in the 1970s, and several members of that team had 3 winners' medals. This is the area of Zamalek, close to the centre of Cairo. Formed in 1911 as Al Mokhtalad, patronage from King Farouk ensured that Zamalek have always been known as the aristocrats. This is where Zamalek are based. Behind the gates is a huge sports club catering for many different sports. The stadium isn't used for league games anymore because access is only through the grounds of the club and isn't deemed safe, but it's not bad for a training ground. Income comes from the 22,000 members, each paying $10,000 a year, as well as from the shops which surround the complex, all of which are owned by the club. But as with most multi-sports clubs around the world, it's football which is the biggest and which feeds the budgets of the other sports. It was from the ranks of these kids that Ismail Youssef came to prominence.
I
joined Zamalek because two things attracted me. Firstly, my elder brother, Ibrahim Youssef, was playing for Zamalek, and all my family were fans of the club. Secondly, Zamalek are renowned for their beautiful football. I've never left the club, and I never intend to leave until I've retired from football. God willing.
Zamalek had lost the first leg of this year's final against Shooting Stars, 2-1 away in Nigeria to set up an exciting second leg. But this is Africa, and incredibly, here in the Cairo International Stadium, most of the 80,000 people had to squeeze through just one gate to get to the game. By midday, 3 hours before kickoff, the stadium was nearly full. 80,000 fans creating one of the truly great sights in world football. A small band of Nigerians arrived, hoping that Shooting Stars could become the first Nigerian team to win the Champions Cup and become the first team to win the Champions Cup, the Cup Winners' Cup and the CAF Cup. Ismail Youssef and Zamalek hoping to write themselves into the record books. Shooting Stars hoping to put the record straight for Nigeria. Zamalek had promised to attack and they were as good as their word. Mehdi Abdul Hadi had his effort blocked. It fell to Ayman Mansour, and Abdul Hadi was there to finish off the move he'd started. 1-0 to Zamalek after 29 minutes. It was the influential Ashraf Kacham who set up the second goal after 66 minutes of a match Zamalek dominated. His telling through ball found Tariq Mustafa, and it was easy for Ayman Mansour. Zamalek could have made sure of a comprehensive victory from this corner, but Kamal Kazi Said squandered the chance. It was to prove costly. With Zamalek coasting to victory, they relaxed with only a minute to go. Kubenga Okinawa found himself unmarked and levelled the scores, 3-3 on aggregate. There's no extra time in African club competitions, so it was down to penalties. Good reason for the Nigerians to pray. Both Zamalek's victories in the 86 and 93 finals had come through penalties. With a score at 4 penalties each, it was sudden death. Johnson Adimolo had to score. He thought he had. The referee said no. Zamalek, champions of Africa for a record 4th time. Ismail Youssef, the history maker, the only man to win 4 winners' medals, and following in the footsteps of his brother Ibrahim, captain in 84 and 86. There was also a first medal for veteran Ahmed El Kass, the star of Egypt's Italian 90 squad. Along with Ismail Youssef, El Kass was transferred to Zamalek from unfashionable Olympic Alexandria only at the start of the season.
To win this cup was very important for me. We played very well today, and much of it was down to the incredible support of the spectators. God willing, we can win the cup for a 5th or 6th time.
Next week in Football Mundial, the first of two programmes looking back on the highlights of 1996. The colour and the characters. Football Mundial's review of the year. See you next week.